Two homeless twin sisters whisper into the young billionaire's ear, "Don't get in the car, your wife wants to kill you." The next day, 3 police cars were circling his house. The sun had barely risen over the horizon when Lily and Lucy, 5-year-old twins, snuck behind a rusty trash can in the parking lot of the imposing Rocha Enterprises. Their watchful eyes, far more perceptive than one might expect for their age, were fixed on an unusual scene unfolding a few yards away. Ashley, the elegant wife of the company's owner, was whispering with a suspicious-looking man, her words laden with dark intentions. The girls, with disheveled hair and tattered clothes, barely breathed, afraid of being discovered. The acrid smell of garbage mixed with the aroma of coffee coming from a nearby coffee shop, making their empty stomachs rumble painfully. "Are you absolutely sure this won't fail?" Ashley asked, her voice trembling with anxiety, but tinged with a determination that made the twins shrink back even further. The man nodded, a malicious smile dancing on his thin lips. "The brakes will fail at exactly the right time. Your husband won't have the slightest chance to escape." His words hung in the air like a death sentence, prompting the twins to exchange worried looks. Lucy clutched her sister's hand, her dirty fingers trembling visibly. "Lily," she whispered, fear evident in her childlike voice, "we have to do something." "We can't let this happen." Lily hesitated, her eyes darting nervously around the parking lot. The fear of being caught battled against her instinct to do the right thing. "But what if they catch us?" she murmured back, her voice choked. "We can't trust adults, remember? That's what Mommy always said." The dilemma weighed on their small shoulders like a ton of bricks. Hunger consumed them, constantly reminding them of their vulnerability. But the idea of allowing something terrible to happen to an innocent person tormented them even more. At that moment, a luxurious car pulled into the parking lot, its engine purring softly. Michael Rocha, the target of the conspiracy, stepped out, his impeccable suit in stark contrast to the twins' ragged clothing. He seemed completely unaware of the danger awaiting him, striding confidently toward the building's entrance. "That's him!" Lucy exclaimed, her voice barely contained, eyes wide with both fear and excitement. Without a second thought, Lily grabbed her sister's hand, making a decision that would change the course of many lives. "Let's go," she said with surprising determination for someone so young. The two ran out of their hiding spot, their bare feet slapping against the cold asphalt of the parking lot. "Sir! Sirs!" they shouted in unison, their high-pitched voices echoing across the open space, drawing curious glances from the few employees who arrived early. Michael turned, surprised to see 2 bedraggled little girls running toward him. For a moment, he hesitated, clearly taken aback by the unusual sight, but something in the desperation in the children's eyes moved him. Instinctively, he knelt down to their level, ignoring the fact that his expensive suit was touching the dirty pavement. "What is it, girls?" he asked, his voice gentle but cautious. Up close, he could see the clear signs of neglect: tangled hair, dirty and torn clothes, barefoot feet covered in scrapes and grime. Panting from both the run and the thrill of the moment, the twins spoke quickly, their words tumbling over each other in a rush of warnings and pleas. "Your car. Danger. Brakes. They're gonna fail." Michael frowned, confused by this burst of disjointed information. Calm down," he said, raising his hands in a soothing gesture. "What exactly are you talking about?" Gathering all her courage, Lily took a step forward and looked directly into Michael's eyes. In that moment, Michael was struck by the intensity in the little girl's gaze, so unexpected in someone so young. "We heard a woman talking to a bad man," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "They want to hurt you. Your car's brakes are gonna fail." Michael's initial disbelief was swiftly replaced by intense curiosity. How could these street kids know something so specific? And why would they risk themselves to warn him? "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice now laced with concern. "Did you see who these people were?" Emboldened by Michael's attention, Lucy added, "The woman was pretty, with blonde hair. She looked important." A chill ran down Michael's spine. The description, though vague, could easily fit Ashley. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Ashley, his devoted, loving wife, would never do something like that. Would she? Before he could ask more questions, a shout echoed through the parking lot. "Hey, you there, what do you think you're doing?" It was the building's security guard, sprinting toward them with an unfriendly expression. Panic seized the twins. With one last pleading look at Michael, they turned and ran, disappearing among the parked cars with surprising agility. Michael stood, watching them vanish, confusion and worry etched on his face. "Mr. Rocha, is everything all right?" the guard asked breathlessly. "Were those girls bothering you?" Michael shook his head, still gazing in the direction the twins had fled. No, they were just asking for help," he lied, not wanting to cause trouble for the children. "Everything's fine." Agitated and with his mind buzzing with questions, Michael went up to his office. The girl's words echoed in his head, mingling with disturbing images of Ashley conspiring against him. It was absurd, he tried to convince himself. But what if... Unable to focus on work, Michael called his driver, William, a trusted man who had been with the family for years. "William," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I need you to take my car for a full checkup at the garage, especially the brakes." William raised an eyebrow, surprised by the unusual request. "Is there a problem, sir?" "The car was thoroughly inspected just 2 weeks ago." Michael hesitated, reluctant to reveal the real reason for his concern. "It's just a precaution," he finally said. "I heard a strange noise yesterday. It's probably nothing, but better safe than sorry." William nodded, accustomed to following his boss's orders without question. "Of course, sir. I'll see to it right away." As William drove off with the car, Michael tried to concentrate on the work piling up, but his mind kept drifting back to the twins, their dirty, frightened faces, their urgent voices. Who were they? Why would they risk themselves to warn him? And more importantly, what had they actually seen and heard? The hours dragged on. Michael alternated between moments of doubt, convincing himself it was all just a misunderstanding or a cruel prank, and moments of paranoia, where every shadow seemed to conceal a threat. Finally, in the middle of the afternoon, Michael's phone rang. His heart skipped a beat when he saw it was the police. "Mr. Rocha?" said a deep voice on the other end. "This is Sergeant Martinez. I'm sorry to inform you, but your driver, William, had an accident." Michael felt the blood freeze in his veins. "An accident? Is he okay? What happened?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, as if the officer were choosing his words carefully. "He's alive but in serious condition at the hospital. Mr. Rocha, the brakes on your car failed completely. It's a miracle he survived." Michael's world seemed to spin. The girls had been right. He could have died if he'd gotten into that car. I'll be there as soon as I can," he managed, his voice trembling. He had barely hung up the phone when Ashley burst into his office, her face pale with worry. "Michael, I just heard about the accident. My God, thank goodness you weren't in the car, dear." Michael watched his wife carefully. There was something off about her surprise, a strange gleam in her eyes he'd never noticed before. Or was he imagining it, seeing conspiracies where there were none? "Yes," he answered cautiously. It was a miracle." While Ashley spoke at length about the accident, expressing concern for William and gratitude that Michael was safe, his mind raced. The twins' warning, the accident, Ashley's reaction. They were beginning to form a disturbing puzzle. "Honey, are you listening to me?" Ashley's voice pulled him back to reality. "I said I'm coming with you to the hospital. I don't want you to be alone at a time like this." Michael nodded mechanically, unable to refuse without arousing suspicion. As they headed to the hospital, he couldn't stop glancing at Ashley from the corner of his eye. Every gesture, every word now seemed charged with hidden meaning. At the hospital, the gravity of the situation became even clearer. William was in the ICU, fighting for his life. The doctors spoke of multiple organ failure due to the impact, of the need for emergency surgeries. Michael felt the weight of guilt pressed down on him. If not for those mysterious girls, it could have been him lying in that hospital bed, or worse. In the days that followed, Michael couldn't get the twins out of his mind. Between hospital visits and attempts to keep the company running smoothly, he began a frantic search for the girls. He combed the streets around the company, questioned employees, visited local shelters. He showed a rough sketch of the twins to shopkeepers in the area, offering rewards. But the girls had vanished like smoke, swallowed up by the vastness of the city. Every empty alley, every unfamiliar face in the street seemed to mock his efforts. Michael began to wonder if he'd imagined it all, if stress and pressure were finally taking their toll. At night, lying next to Ashley, Michael pretended to sleep while his mind replayed every detail of the last few days. Ashley's behavior, once so loving and devoted, now appeared calculated, every gesture carefully orchestrated. He found himself analyzing her every word, searching for double meanings, veiled threats. The woman he had shared his life with for the past few years was now a stranger, an enigma he could not decipher. One night, unable to sleep, Michael rose silently and went to his home office. Locking the door, he pulled out a blank notebook and started writing down everything he knew and suspected. The twins and their warning, William's accident, Ashley's reaction, subtle details in her behavior that he'd previously overlooked. When he finished, Michael stared at the pages covered with his frantic handwriting. It was the start of something he knew. The start of an investigation that might destroy everything he knew and loved. But he had no choice. If Ashley really was behind this attempted murder, and the idea still seemed absurd even after everything, he had to find out the truth, not just for himself, but for William, still fighting for his life in the hospital, and for those two little twins who had risked everything to save him. Michael knew he stood at the edge of something big, something dangerous. The twins had planted a seed of doubt that was now growing uncontrollably, threatening to consume his entire life. Carefully placing the notebook in a hidden compartment of his desk, Michael made a decision. He would get to the bottom of this, no matter the cost. He would find the twins, discover the truth about Ashley, and if necessary, rebuild his life from scratch. The sun was beginning to rise when Michael finally returned to bed. Ashley stirred slightly, murmuring something in her sleep. For a moment, Michael felt a pang of sorrow as he looked at her. How had things come to this? Lying there, pretending to sleep once more, Michael couldn't stop thinking about the twins. Where were they now? Were they safe? Well fed? The thought of two such small children facing the dangers of the streets haunted him. He made a silent promise. Not only would he uncover the truth about the accident and Ashley's possible involvement, but he would also find a way to help those girls. They had saved his life. The least he could do was return the favor. As the bedroom slowly filled with the light of dawn, Michael finally fell into a fitful sleep. In his dreams, he saw two small figures running through dark alleys, always out of reach, and behind them, a looming shadow with Ashley's face crept ever closer. Michael woke with a start, his heart racing. The dream still vivid in his mind. He looked to his side and saw Ashley sleeping peacefully. For a moment, the normality of the scene almost convinced him it had all been an elaborate nightmare. But then his eyes caught a detail. Ashley's phone, carelessly left on the nightstand, blinked with a notification. For just an instant, Michael was certain he saw a name he didn't recognize. Quietly, he got out of bed, his mind swirling with doubts and theories. As he prepared for another day, one likely filled with secret investigations and mounting suspicions, Michael couldn't help but think of the two small heroines who had changed his life. Somewhere in the city, Lily and Lucy huddled together in a dark alley, unaware that their act of courage had set in motion a chain of events that would forever change many destinies, including their own. The sun rose fully, marking the start of a new day. For Michael, it was the beginning of a dangerous journey toward the truth. For the twins, it was just another day struggling to survive. And for Ashley, though she did not yet know, it was the beginning of the end of her carefully guarded secrets. The morning sun had barely begun to warm the manicured gardens of the Rocha mansion when the sound of sirens shattered the peace of the upscale neighborhood. Michael, who was finishing his breakfast on the veranda, stood abruptly, knocking over his cup and staining the pristine white tablecloth. 3 police cruisers stopped in front of the main gate, their lights flashing urgently. Curious neighbors began peeking from behind curtains and hedges, fueling a rumor that would no doubt spread like wildfire. "What's going on?" Ashley asked, appearing at the veranda door, her face a mask of concern. Michael didn't answer immediately, his eyes fixed on the uniformed figures approaching the house. The doorbell rang, echoing through the mansion with a sinister finality. Michael took a deep breath, straightened his tie, and went to answer, Ashley right behind him. "Mr. Michael Rocha?" asked a tall, broad-shouldered man displaying a badge. "I'm Detective Ramirez. We have a warrant to search your property and access the financial records of Rocha Enterprises." Michael felt the blood run cold in his veins. "What is this about, Detective?" Ramirez exchanged a meaningful look with his colleagues before answering. "We received an anonymous tip about possible multi-million-dollar embezzlement in your company, Mr. Rocha. We have documents showing suspicious transfers of large sums." Michael's perplexity was genuine. He opened his mouth to protest, but the words wouldn't come. Ashley, beside him, let out a small gasp of surprise. "This is absurd," she exclaimed, her voice trembling slightly. "Michael would never do something like that." Detective Ramirez kept his expression neutral. "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but we have evidence that needs investigating. Mr. Rocha, if you could take us to your office." Still stunned, Michael led the police through the luxurious interior of the mansion to his private office. There, Detective Ramirez spread a series of documents over the mahogany desk. "These are copies of bank transfers made over the last 6 months, Ramirez explained, pointing to the papers. "Each involves substantial amounts of money sent to offshore accounts in tax havens." Michael examined the documents, his face growing paler by the second. He did not recognize any of those transactions. Each line, each number seemed a silent accusation against him. I don't understand," he stammered, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I never authorized any of this. There has to be some mistake." Detective Ramirez watched him closely, looking for signs of guilt or nervousness. "Mr. Rocha, are you saying you have no knowledge of these transfers?" "Absolutely none," Michael stated, his voice regaining a bit of firmness. "I can assure you I never authorized anything like this." At that moment, Ashley intervened. "Detective, clearly there's been a mistake. Michael is an honest man. He built this company from the ground up. Why risk everything now?" Ramirez nodded but kept a skeptical gaze. "Ma'am, I understand your position, but we need to investigate every possibility. Mr. Rocha, who else would have access to the company's accounts to make such large transfers?" Michael frowned in thought. "Only me and our chief accountant, Mr. Alvarez, have authorization for transactions of this magnitude." "Then we'll need to speak with Mr. Alvarez immediately," Ramirez declared. "Can you call him here?" With trembling hands, Michael picked up the phone and dialed the accountant's number. The conversation was brief and tense, with Michael succinctly explaining the situation. While they waited for Alvarez to arrive, the police began to search the office, photographing documents and collecting evidence. Michael watched it all with a mixture of shock and disbelief. How had his life unraveled so quickly? Half an hour later, a visibly anxious Alvarez entered the office. The accountant, a middle-aged man with thin-rimmed glasses, went pale at the sight of the officers. "Mr. Alvarez," Detective Ramirez began, "we have records of multi-million-dollar transfers to offshore accounts. Mr. Rocha says he's unaware of them. Can you explain?" Alvarez examined the documents, sweat beading on his forehead. I don't understand," he stuttered. "These transactions aren't in our official records. I've never seen them before." The confusion on Alvarez's face looked genuine, but Michael could trust no one anymore. His world was collapsing around him, and he didn't know who to believe. "Gentlemen," Ramirez said, his voice brimming with authority, "based on what we've seen here, we'll have to start a formal investigation. We need full access to all financial records of Rocha Enterprises, as well as Mr. Rocha's and Mr. Alvarez's personal records." Michael felt the weight of those words slam onto his shoulders. He knew he had nothing to hide, but the mere fact of the investigation could destroy everything he had built over the years. "We'll do our best to cooperate, Detective," he said, his voice surprisingly calm. "But I want to make it clear that I'm innocent. Someone is trying to frame me." Ramirez nodded, his face impassive. "I understand your position, Mr. Rocha. Our investigation will be thorough and impartial. If you're innocent, we'll find out. As the police continued their work, Michael stepped away to a corner of the office, trying to process everything happening. Ashley approached, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "It's going to be all right, dear," she whispered. "We'll get through this together." Michael looked at his wife, seeking comfort in her eyes, but a small voice in the back of his mind couldn't help wondering, was she truly on his side? As the morning wore on, the Rocha mansion became a hive of police activity. More officers arrived, carrying forensic IT equipment. Drawers were emptied, computers confiscated, and boxes of documents loaded into police vans. Michael watched with a sense of unreality. Just days ago, his biggest worry had been the mysterious warning from 2 street girls. Now he faced losing everything: his company, his reputation, his freedom. Detective Ramirez approached Michael again, his face serious. "Mr. Rocha, in light of the circumstances, we're going to have to bring you to the station for a formal statement. You have the right to remain silent and to have an attorney present." Michael nodded, resigned. "I understand, Detective. I have nothing to hide. I'm willing to cooperate fully." As he was escorted out of his own home, Michael couldn't help noticing the curious stares of the neighbors and the occasional camera flash. By tomorrow, he knew, his face would be splashed across every newspaper and newscast. Sitting in the back of the police cruiser, Michael closed his eyes, trying to make sense of it all. The puzzle pieces, the twins' warning, William's accident, and now this investigation, refused to fit together in any coherent way. One thing, however, was clear to Michael. The situation was far more serious and complex than he could ever have imagined. Someone was playing an elaborate game, and he was just a pawn on the board. As the cruiser pulled away from the mansion, Michael made a silent promise to himself. He would uncover the truth, no matter the cost, and when he did, those responsible for this scheme would pay dearly for their actions. The image of Michael looking out the cruiser window, his determined reflection contrasting with the once familiar neighborhood that now felt strangely hostile. As the Rocha mansion disappeared over the horizon, Michael knew he was leaving behind not just his home, but also the life he once knew. Ahead lay a world of uncertainty, betrayal, and shocking revelations. Dawn had barely touched the concrete streets when Michael Rocha left his mansion, dressed inconspicuously so as not to attract attention. After days of grueling interrogations and sleepless nights, he was determined to find the only people who could shed light on the mystery surrounding his life, the mysterious twin girls. Moving cautiously, Michael entered the streets near his company, an area geographically close but in many ways a world apart from his. Narrow alleyways, worn-out buildings, and wary glances greeted him, a stark reminder of how far his reality was from that of the people living there. His first stop was a small bakery on the corner, frequented by local workers. The aroma of fresh bread filled his nostrils as he approached the counter. "Good morning," Michael greeted the attendant, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes. "Have you by any chance seen 2 twin girls around here? They're about 5 years old, dark hair." The woman frowned, thinking, "Twins? No, I don't recall any children like that, but there are so many homeless kids around here." She sighed, shaking her head. Michael thanked her and moved on, his heart heavy with the reality her words underscored. How many children survived on the streets, invisible to the rest of society? Over the course of the day, Michael visited shop after shop, stall after stall, always asking the same question. Some people ignored him outright, others eyed him suspiciously, but no one seemed to have seen the twins. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Michael found himself in front of a small shelter for the homeless. The place was simple but clean, with a steady stream of people coming in and out. "Hello," he addressed a volunteer organizing donations. "I'm looking for 2 twin girls. They helped me a few days ago, and I'd like to return the favor." The volunteer, a young woman with dyed hair, eyed him curiously. "Twins? We don't have any here, but if you want to help, we can always use donations and volunteers." Michael nodded, making a mental note to send resources to the shelter later. He continued his search, visiting 3 different social service organizations that day. Everywhere, the story was the same. No one had seen the twins, but everyone had heartbreaking tales about children surviving on the streets. As he walked from one place to another, Michael couldn't stop reflecting on the twins' warning. How had they known about the sabotage to his car? And why had they risked so much to warn him? The connection between that incident and his company's current troubles felt increasingly clear, though the details remained elusive. His thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of his phone. It was Ashley. "Darling, where are you? I'm worried." Her voice sounded anxious on the line. Michael hesitated a moment before replying. "Just taking care of some company business. Don't worry, I'll be home for dinner." After hanging up, Michael couldn't help noticing how different Ashley's voice seemed now. There was an edge of urgency, almost desperation he'd never picked up on before. Or had it always been there, and he'd simply refused to see? His thoughts drifted back to the last few days at home. Ashley always seemed to be on the phone, whispering, hanging up abruptly whenever he entered the room. Then there was Nathan, his brother-in-law, who had been showing up at the mansion more and more often, with increasingly flimsy excuses. Michael shook his head, trying to dispel his suspicions. He needed to focus on finding the twins. They were the key to understanding all of this. The sun was already setting when, exhausted and discouraged, Michael decided to make one last attempt before heading home. He approached a narrow alley near his company's building, a place he would normally avoid but now found strangely compelling. That's when he saw them. Huddled behind a stack of cardboard boxes, two small figures were watching the street with alert eyes. Michael felt his heart leap. It was them. "Hello," he called gently, maintaining a safe distance so as not to startle them. "Do you remember me?" The girls glanced at each other, clearly debating whether to flee or reply. Finally, the one who seemed to be Lily stepped forward. "You're the man from the car," she said, her voice small but firm. Michael nodded, feeling a wave of relief. "That's right. I'm Michael. You saved my life that day, and I wanted to thank you." Lucy, still partially hiding behind her sister, asked, "You believed us?" "Yes, I did," Michael answered, sitting on the ground so he was at their eye level. "You were right about everything. Can you tell me how you knew?" The girls exchanged another look before Lily began to speak. We watch people. That's how we survive here." "Survive?" Michael asked gently. "Don't you have a family?" Lucy shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "Our mommy died a year ago. Since then, it's just been us." Michael felt a lump form in his throat. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. "It must be very hard for you." Lily nodded, wrapping an arm protectively around her sister. "It is hard, but we take care of each other. We learn things, like how to tell when people are lying or doing something bad." "Is that how you found out about my car?" Michael asked, fascinated by the children's insight. "We saw the pretty woman talking to the bad man," Lucy explained. "They looked nervous and whispered about breaks and accidents." Michael felt a shiver run down his spine. The description perfectly matched his suspicions about Ashley. "Why did you decide to warn me?" he asked, genuinely curious. Lily shrugged, a surprisingly adult gesture for someone so young. "We didn't want anybody to get hurt. Even if you're rich and we're poor, it's not right to let someone die." Michael felt tears welling up in his eyes. The purity and kindness of these children, who had so little yet risked themselves to help a stranger, touched him deeply. "You two are incredible," he said. His voice choked. "I'd like to help you. I can buy you food, clothes, whatever you need." The girls shrank back visibly at his offer. "We can't trust adults," Lily said firmly. "They always want something in return." Michael's heart broke at the evident distrust. What horrors had these kids endured to feel this way? "I understand," he said softly, "but I want you to know you can count on me if you ever need help." He took a card from his pocket and placed it on the ground between them. "This is my number. If you ever need anything, please call me." The girls looked at the card curiously, but made no move to pick it up. "Thanks," Lily finally said, "but we'll be okay." Michael nodded, respecting their decision. Slowly, he stood, feeling the weight of the day in his bones. "Take care of yourselves, please," he said, "and thank you again for saving my life." As he walked away from the alley, Michael couldn't help looking back. The twins watched him go, their small figures illuminated by the dim glow of a streetlight. The contrast between the children's innocence and kindness and the suspicions he now harbored about those closest to him couldn't have been more striking. Those two girls, who had nothing, had risked everything to save him, and Ashley, who had everything, might be conspiring to destroy him. Walking back toward his mansion, Michael felt a renewed sense of determination. He wasn't just fighting for himself or his company anymore. He was fighting for a world in which children like Lily and Lucy wouldn't have to live on the streets, mistrusting everyone. The sun had long since set by the time Michael arrived home. The mansion's lights were aglow, creating an image of comfort and security that now felt like a cruel facade. Ashley greeted him at the door, her face a mask of concern. "Michael, where have you been? I was so worried." He looked at his wife, searching her eyes for some sign of the woman he had fallen in love with, but all he saw now were shadows and secrets. "Just taking care of some things," he replied vaguely, passing by her into his office. Closing the door behind him, Michael couldn't stop thinking about the twins, alone in that cold alley. He picked up his phone, determined to do something, anything, to help them. But before he could dial, he heard voices in the hallway. Ashley and Nathan speaking in urgent whispers. "We can't keep going like this." Nathan's voice was tense. "He's getting suspicious." "Calm down," Ashley responded. "Everything is under control." Michael felt his heart tighten. The puzzle pieces were coming together, forming a picture he didn't want to see but could no longer deny. Sitting in his leather chair, surrounded by the luxury that now seemed hollow, Michael made a silent promise. He would find the truth, protect those girls, and somehow navigate this labyrinth of betrayals and lies. Michael gazing out his office window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Somewhere out there, two small heroines struggled to survive, while here in his own home, a conspiracy was unfolding. The quest for the truth was only beginning, and Michael knew the road ahead would be long and perilous. Michael Rocha stood by the window of his office, watching the frantic city below. His mind, however, was far away, lost in a maze of suspicion and conspiracy theories. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions and discoveries, each more disturbing than the last. With a heavy sigh, he turned to his computer and opened an encrypted email. It was the reply he'd been waiting for from Sentinel Security, a highly recommended cybersecurity firm known for its discretion. "Mr. Rocha, as requested, we performed a comprehensive analysis of Rocha Enterprises systems. Our findings are, to say the least, concerning. We detected multiple unauthorized logins to the financial systems over the past 6 months. These logins were carried out using high-level credentials, indicating an internal breach. We recommend a more in-depth investigation and the immediate implementation of additional security measures. Sincerely, Marcus Chen, Director of Operations, Sentinel Security." Michael felt a knot tighten in his stomach. His suspicions were confirmed, but reality was even worse than he'd imagined. Someone inside the company, someone with top-tier access, was orchestrating the theft. Wasting no time, Michael buzzed his intercom. "Sandra, please call the maintenance team. Tell them it's urgent." Half an hour later, under the pretext of updating the security system, Michael personally oversaw the installation of hidden cameras in his office and the building's common areas. He knew he was treading on ethically shaky ground, but felt he had no choice. In the days that followed, Michael existed in a constant state of hypervigilance. Every conversation, every glance, every employee gesture was scrutinized for signs of betrayal. Two people in particular drew his attention, Ashley and Nathan. Nathan, his brother-in-law and the company's finance manager, seemed perpetually on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Michael often caught him making furtive phone calls from the building's more secluded corners, always glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to be caught. One particularly tense afternoon, Michael overheard Nathan whispering urgently into his phone. "I can't talk right now. Yes, I know the deadline is coming. I'll do my best, but I can't guarantee anything. No, don't pressure me." When Nathan noticed Michael's presence, he hung up abruptly, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, Michael." "Just sorting out a few issues with a supplier. Nothing to worry about." Michael nodded, feigning belief. "Sure, Nathan. Let me know if you need help. At night, at home, Michael's suspicions extended to Ashley as well. During dinner, she casually mentioned a recent financial transaction in the company that, in theory, she shouldn't know about. "So, darling," Ashley said between bites of salad, "I heard the merger with Technova is going well. Must be a relief after that complicated transfer to the Cayman Islands last month." Michael almost choked on his wine. The transfer to the Cayman Islands was highly confidential, known only to a select group of executives. How did Ashley know about it? Maintaining his composure, Michael replied vaguely, "Ah yes, business has its ups and downs, but I'd rather not bring work to the dinner table. How was your day?" As Ashley droned on about her routine, Michael felt his heart hammering. The puzzle pieces were lining up in ways he desperately wished they weren't. That night, after Ashley fell asleep, Michael slipped into his home office. Locking the door, he retrieved a black notebook. It was his secret dossier, where he meticulously documented every suspicious activity, every strange conversation, every odd detail. Pen hovering over the page, he hesitated. Writing down suspicions about his own wife felt like a betrayal. But he knew he had to remain objective. He couldn't let personal feelings cloud his judgment. With a heavy sigh, he began writing. June 14th. Ashley displayed knowledge of a confidential transaction, Cayman Islands. Unknown source of information, possible internal leak. As the pages filled with his frantic notes, Michael felt the burden of his suspicions grow heavier. Who could he really trust? Early the next morning, Michael arrived at the office earlier than usual. He wanted to review the hidden camera recordings before the workday began. Locked in his office, he started going through the previous night's footage. For hours, nothing happened except the occasional security guard doing rounds. But then, just after midnight, two figures appeared on screen. Michael leaned forward, eyes wide with surprise and horror. It was Ashley and Nathan. Turning up the volume, Michael listened as his wife and brother-in-law had a tense, anxious conversation. "Ashley, this is getting way too dangerous," Nathan said, his voice trembling slightly. "I think someone's watching us." Michael's been acting strange, asking questions. Ashley placed a hand on Nathan's arm in a gesture that seemed both comforting and controlling. "Calm down, Nathan. Everything's under control. Michael doesn't suspect a thing." Nathan shook his head vehemently. "You don't understand. The police are snooping around, asking questions. What if they find out? I'm done. I can't risk everything like this." "You don't have a choice," Ashley hissed, her tone suddenly cold. "Have you forgotten what's at stake? What he will do if we fail?" Nathan visibly paled. "No, don't remind me. But Ashley, this has to end. We can't keep going forever." Ashley sighed, her posture softening. I know. We just need to hold on a bit longer. Follow the instructions exactly, and soon it will all be over." "And Michael?" Nathan asked hesitantly. An enigmatic smile crossed Ashley's lips. "Don't worry about Michael. I'll handle him." The conversation continued for a few more minutes, with vague references to deadlines, transfers, and a mysterious figure they called he. When Ashley and Nathan finally left, Michael remained frozen, staring at the now empty screen. His world had collapsed. The woman he loved, to whom he had entrusted his life and heart, was at the center of a plot to destroy him. And Nathan, his own brother-in-law, was her reluctant accomplice. With trembling hands, Michael turned off the computer. His mind reeled, trying to process what he had just discovered. Who was this he Ashley and Nathan feared? What was their ultimate goal? One thing was clear. He couldn't trust anyone, not even the police, who might be compromised or simply fail to grasp the complexity of the situation. Michael knew he needed to escalate his private investigation. He had to discover the full truth before it was too late. With renewed determination, he picked up his phone and dialed a number he'd hoped never to use. "Hello, Sam? It's Michael Rocha. Remember that favor you owe me? Well, I'm cashing it in. I need your help with a discreet investigation." As he explained the situation to Sam, a private investigator he trusted, Michael felt a mixture of fear and resolve growing inside him. The game had changed. It was no longer just his company or reputation at stake. It was his life, his future, everything he'd worked for. And somewhere in the city, two small twins, the only people Michael felt he could truly trust, continued their daily battle for survival, unaware of the crucial role they had played in this unfolding drama. Michael gazed out the window of his office, taking in a city he once thought he knew so well. Now every shadow hid a secret, every familiar face a potential threat. "I will find out the truth," he murmured to himself, "no matter the cost." The sun sank beneath the horizon, casting long shadows across the city. For Michael Rocha, a new phase of his life was beginning, a phase filled with secrets, betrayals, and shocking revelations. He was determined to untangle the web of lies surrounding him, no matter where the truth led. Night had begun to fall across the city when Michael finally left his office. With measured steps, he headed to the parking lot, each movement calculated to avoid drawing attention. Once inside his car, he couldn't help scanning his surroundings, wondering who else might be watching, who else might be involved in this elaborate scheme. Driving home, Michael reflected on the events of the day, the footage from his hidden cameras, the suspicions about Ashley and Nathan, that cryptic conversation. Everything spun through his mind like a relentless whirlwind. When he arrived home, Ashley greeted him with a warm smile and a kiss. He returned it mechanically, his heart heavy with the knowledge of her betrayal. "How was your day, darling?" Ashley asked, her voice sweet as honey. Michael forced a smile. "Same as always. Lots of work. You know how it is." As they ate dinner, Michael watched Ashley's every move and expression, searching for traces of the woman he'd seen on the camera footage. It was surreal how she could act so normal, as though she weren't at the center of a conspiracy to destroy him. Later that night, lying in bed next to Ashley, Michael pretended to sleep while his mind raced. He knew the coming days would be crucial. With Sam's help, he hoped to uncover more pieces of this complex puzzle. One thing was certain: he could trust no one close to him. Ashley, Nathan, maybe even others at the company. Everyone was now a suspect. Michael felt utterly alone, isolated in a sea of uncertainty and betrayal. As sleep finally overtook him, Michael's thoughts turned once more to Lily and Lucy, the small twins who had triggered all this by warning him. Amid the chaos and disappointment, those children's purity and bravery shone like a beacon of hope. "I will find the truth," Michael promised himself again as he drifted into a restless sleep. "For me, for the company, and for those girls, whatever happens, the truth will come out." Michael was asleep, but his mind remained on high alert, unconsciously preparing for the challenges ahead. The investigation was only beginning, and the road ahead promised to be full of twists, dangers, and shocking revelations. It was already dark when Michael Rocha parked his car a few blocks from the address Sam Reynolds had given him. Scanning the area to ensure he wasn't being followed, he adjusted the collar of his coat and walked briskly through the dimly lit streets. Sam Reynolds' office was worlds away from the luxurious corporate milieu to which Michael was accustomed. Housed in an old, run-down building downtown, the setting was deliberately discreet, almost anonymous. Michael hesitated briefly before knocking on the battered door, fully aware of the gravity of the decision he was about to make. "Come in," came the gruff response from inside. Sam Reynolds was a middle-aged man with rumpled grey hair and penetrating eyes that seemed to read a person's soul. He gestured toward a worn chair for Michael to sit, then settled behind a desk piled high with papers and outdated electronic devices. "So, Mr. Rocha," Sam began, his professional tone clashing with his disheveled appearance, "you mentioned on the phone that you have a delicate case." Michael nodded, feeling the weight of his worries intensify. "Delicate is an understatement, Sam. What I'm about to share with you must not leave this room. My life, my entire company is on the line." Sam leaned forward, eyes sharply focused on Michael. "I understand the seriousness of this, Mr. Rocha. You can trust my absolute discretion. Now, why don't you start at the beginning?" For the next 90 minutes, Michael spilled everything: his initial suspicions, the twins' warning, William's accident, the security firm's findings, the incriminating footage of Ashley and Nathan. Sam listened attentively, occasionally jotting down notes and furrowing his brow as the complexity of the case unfolded. When Michael finally finished, a heavy silence settled over the office. Sam leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "This is intricate," Sam said at last. "We're dealing with a conspiracy on multiple levels, Mr. Rocha. I'll need access to all financial records from your company for the past 2 years at least. And any additional information on Ashley, Dawn, Nathan, and this mysterious he they mentioned." Michael nodded, producing a flash drive from his coat's inner pocket. "Here's everything I could gather so far. Records, tapes, my personal notes. Use it discreetly, Sam. As I said, my life and my company are at stake." Sam took the flash drive, examining it briefly before locking it away in a drawer. "Understood. I'll start immediately. But Michael," he said, using his first name for the first time, "I need you to keep your routine normal. Any change in behavior might tip off the people involved." Michael felt a knot in his stomach. The idea of continuing to act normal, knowing what he now knew, seemed nearly impossible. "How long do you think it'll take to get some concrete answers?" Sam shook his head. "Hard to say. Complex financial schemes like this can take weeks, even months, to fully unravel. But I promise to keep you updated." Michael stood, feeling both relieved to share his burden and anxious about what lay ahead. "Thank you, Sam. I'll be waiting." Leaving Sam's office, Michael felt the weight of what he faced, maintaining appearances, carrying on as if nothing were wrong, all while he was torn apart by doubts and suspicions. The days that followed were a test of Michael's self-control. By day, he was the confident and charismatic CEO, running meetings, making critical decisions, smiling and joking with employees. But each interaction with Ashley or Nathan was a carefully staged performance. A week after hiring Sam, Michael was leaving the office when he noticed 2 familiar shapes hiding behind a car in the parking lot. His heart jumped when he recognized Lily and Lucy, the twins who had saved his life. Approaching cautiously, Michael called out softly, "Lily! Lucy! Is that you?" The girls emerged hesitantly from their hiding spot, their big, wary eyes fixed on him. Even in the dim lighting of the parking lot, Michael could see they looked thinner and more tired than the last time he'd seen them. "What are you doing here?" Michael asked gently, crouching down to their level. "It's dangerous to be out here so late." Lily, always the braver one, replied, "We're keeping an eye on things, to make sure the bad woman doesn't try to hurt you again." Michael felt a surge of emotion as he realized these children, who barely had enough to survive, were risking themselves to protect him. "You're both very brave," he said, his voice unsteady. "But I don't want you to be in danger because of me. Let me help you. I can find you a safe place to stay with food and clothes." Lucy shook her head vigorously, stepping back. "We can't. Adults always want something in return." Michael's heart ached at their evident distrust. "I understand why you feel that way, and you're right to be cautious. But I promise, I don't want anything in return. I just want you to be safe." The twins exchanged glances, clearly debating internally. Finally, Lily spoke. We'll think about it." "All right," Michael agreed, not wanting to pressure them. "But please, be careful. And if you need anything at all, call me." He offered his card again, which Lily hesitantly accepted this time. Watching the twins disappear into the night once more, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just fighting for himself now. He was fighting for a world where children like Lily and Lucy didn't have to live in constant fear and hardship. Days turned into weeks, and Sam Reynolds' updates began painting a disturbing picture. The investigator had uncovered a web of complex financial transactions involving dozens of offshore accounts and shell companies. In one of their secret meetings, Sam spread a series of diagrams and documents across his worn desk. "It's like a financial spiderweb," he explained, pointing to the complex flowcharts. "Each suspicious transaction branches out into several more, creating layer upon layer of obscurity." Michael studied the diagrams, feeling a mix of awe at the scheme's ingenuity and horror at its scale. "And where is all this money going?" he asked, dreading the answer. Sam frowned, picking up another document. "That's the most intriguing part. All the transactions seem to converge on one single entity, a holding company in a tax haven, but the identity of the final beneficiaries remains a mystery." Michael felt a chill run down his spine. "How much money are we talking about here, Sam?" The investigator hesitated a moment before replying. "Based on what I've tracked so far, we're talking tens of millions of dollars, possibly more." Michael felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. The scale of the embezzlement was far greater than he'd initially imagined. How could this happen right under my nose? Sam placed a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder. "Don't blame yourself. Whoever's behind this is extremely sophisticated. They've probably been planning it for years." As Sam continued his meticulous investigation, Michael couldn't help but notice subtle changes in Ashley's behavior. She seemed more tense, more secretive. Several times he caught her on hushed phone calls, ending them quickly whenever he came near. One night, Michael pretended to be asleep while Ashley received yet another mysterious call. Straining his ears, he tried to catch any information. "Yes, I understand," Ashley whispered, her voice barely audible. "No, Alexander, we can't rush things." Michael still suspects nothing. Michael had to control himself not to react. Alexander. Who was Alexander, and what role did he play in this conspiracy? The next morning, Michael shared this new info with Sam, who promised to investigate all individuals named Alexander, connected to Michael's or Ashley's personal or professional life. The weeks dragged on, and Michael felt the constant strain of the charade he had to maintain. Every smile at Ashley, every casual conversation with Nathan, was an exhausting performance. He wondered how many times a day he betrayed his true feelings, how many times his expression almost gave him away. One particularly tense afternoon, after a difficult meeting with investors worried about police investigations, Michael decided to take a walk to clear his mind. His steps led him, unconsciously, to the alley where he'd last seen the twins. To his surprise, they were there again, watching the entrance to the building intently. "Lily, Lucy," he called softly as he approached. The girls turned around, less startled this time. There was something different in their gazes, a blend of worry and resolve that seemed out of place in such young faces. "Mr. Michael," Lily began, her voice trembling slightly. "We've seen things, bad things." Michael felt his heart pound faster. "What sort of things, Lily?" Lucy continued in a whisper. "That bad woman, your wife, she met with a man last night, near here. They talked about money and about hurting you." Michael forced himself to remain calm, mindful of not scaring the girls with his reaction. Did you hear any names?" Lily furrowed her brow, concentrating. "I think so. Alex." "Alexander?" Michael asked, feeling a cold dread. The twins' eyes widened in recognition. "Yes, that's the one." Kneeling down, Michael looked directly into the girls' eyes. "Lily, Lucy, you're incredibly brave and smart, but this is very dangerous. Please, let me help you. I can keep you safe." For the first time, the twins seemed to seriously consider his offer. They exchanged looks, as though sharing a silent conversation. Finally, Lily spoke. We'll think about it. But Mr. Michael, be careful. They're planning something big." Michael nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and concern for the girls. "I promise I'll be cautious, and my offer stands any time." As the twins vanished into the night yet again, Michael dialed Sam's number with trembling fingers. "Sam, we have a new lead. And I think things are about to reach a breaking point." The next day, Sam contacted Michael with alarming news. He had discovered that several luxury properties, supposedly owned by people close to Michael, including Ashley and Nathan, were actually rented or financed by shell companies linked to the mysterious holding. "Michael," Sam said, his grave voice echoing through the phone, "I think we're dealing with something much bigger than we initially suspected. This isn't just about siphoning money from your company. It's like someone is building an elaborate facade, creating the illusion of wealth and success for multiple people around you." Michael felt the ground shift beneath him. "But why? What's the end game here?" Sam let out a heavy sigh. "I don't know yet, but one thing's certain. There are more people involved in this scheme than we originally thought. Your wife, your brother-in-law, this Alexander, they're just pieces in a much bigger puzzle." That night, lying next to Ashley, who was feigning sleep, Michael felt as though he were lying beside a stranger. The woman he thought he knew and loved had become an enigma, a potential threat. Every breath she took, every subtle movement, seemed loaded with hidden meaning and imminent danger. As sleep eluded him, Michael couldn't stop thinking about the twins. Lily and Lucy, two street kids, had proven more trustworthy and loyal than the people closest to him. The bitter irony did not go unnoticed. Dawn broke, marking the start of another day of pretense and hidden investigations. Michael got up, preparing himself for another performance as a carefree CEO and loving husband. But inside, he felt more determined than ever to expose the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Driving to the office, Michael once again spotted the twins keeping watch near the building's entrance. Their eyes met briefly, a silent exchange of warning and gratitude. He realized that amid all this chaos and betrayal, he had found unlikely allies in those two small street heroines. The day passed in a haze of meetings, phone calls, and corporate decisions. Michael surprised himself with his ability to maintain a facade of normalcy, even as he was internally consumed by secrets and suspicions. During a lunch break, Michael received an encrypted message from Sam. Major discovery. Found a connection between Alexander and one of your old business rivals. Need to talk urgently. Same place, 10 p.m. Michael's heart raced. An old rival? The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but the picture forming was darker and more complex than he could have ever imagined. As the afternoon wore on, Michael noticed Ashley receiving another suspicious call. She walked away, whispering. When she returned, her face was pale and tense. "Is everything okay, honey?" Michael asked. Playing the concerned husband role, Ashley forced a smile. "Sure. Just a problem with planning our next charity event. Nothing to worry about." Michael nodded, knowing full well each word was a lie. The charity event was likely code for something far more sinister. At exactly 10 p.m., Michael once again found himself in Sam Reynolds' discreet office. The investigator seemed more agitated than usual, his eyes gleaming with the excitement of fresh discoveries. "Michael, do you remember Thomas Blackwood?" Sam asked without preamble. Michael shivered at the name. "Of course, he was my main competitor about 10 years ago. Lost everything when I exposed his unethical business practices." Sam nodded gravely. "Well, it looks like Mr. Blackwood never forgot you. The Alexander we mentioned. He's Alexander Blackwood, Thomas's son." The revelation hit Michael like a punch to the gut. "You're telling me this entire conspiracy, all of it, is a carefully orchestrated vendetta by the Blackwoods?" "That's what it appears," Sam confirmed, "but it's even more complicated. The holding company we traced, it's registered under the name Diana Blackwood, Thomas's wife." Michael felt his head spin with the implications. A whole family conspiracy, planned over years, all to destroy him. But how did they convince Ashley and Nathan to get involved? Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sam hesitated before responding. "Michael, there's one more thing you need to know. I found some old records. It looks like Ashley's family had business connections with the Blackwoods before you even met her." Michael's world seemed to crumble. Ashley wasn't just a reluctant accomplice. She might have been part of the plan from the start. Their marriage, their life together. It could all have been one massive lie. "I need some air," Michael muttered, standing abruptly. Sam nodded sympathetically, escorting Michael to the office door. "Be careful, Michael. Now that we know how deep this goes, you're in more danger than ever." Michael walked into the cold night, his mind a whirlpool of conflicting emotions and thoughts. As he wandered aimlessly through the city streets, he couldn't stop thinking about how his life had become a twisted nightmare. Unconsciously, his steps led him back near his company building. Then he saw them again, Lily and Lucy, the twins who had become his unlikely guardian angels. They were crouched in a nearby alley, keeping watch. Approaching them, Michael felt a sudden surge of clarity. Amid all the lies and betrayal, these two street children were the only ones he could truly trust. "Lily, Lucy," he called softly. The girls turned, their eyes lighting up with a mix of relief and concern upon seeing him. "Mr. Michael," Lily said, her voice trembling slightly, "we saw more things. Bad things are about to happen." Michael knelt beside them, his heart heavy. "I know, girls, I know. But now, more than ever, I need you two to be safe. Please, let me help you." For the first time, the twins did not immediately reject his offer. They exchanged glances, as if holding another silent conversation. Finally, Lucy spoke. We think we can trust you." A wave of emotion hit Michael. "I promise I'll protect you. We'll face this together." Leading the twins away from danger, toward an uncertain future, Michael knew a new phase of his life was beginning. The silent investigation had revealed painful truths, but it had also shown him unlikely allies. Michael, Lily, and Lucy walked together into the night, three figures united against a conspiracy bigger than any of them had imagined. The road ahead would be dangerous and filled with challenges, but with the twins' innocence and courage by his side, Michael felt he had the strength to face whatever lay ahead. The silent investigation was over. Now, it was time to act. Michael Rocha spent yet another sleepless night, surrounded by piles of documents in his home office. The dim desk lamp cast unsettling shadows over the scattered papers, as if even they conspired to hide the truth he so desperately sought. His eyes burned from fatigue, yet he didn't dare stop. Any document, any bank statement, any old email could hold the key to unraveling the mystery that had consumed his life. Sam's discoveries about connections between the Blackwoods and his family had opened a Pandora's box, and Michael was determined to explore every dark corner. During this frantic search, his fingers found a dusty folder hidden in the back of an old file cabinet. Carefully, Michael opened it, nearly stopping cold when he saw its contents. It was an old, yellowed photograph. In it, two men smiled at the camera, arms around each other in a friendly gesture. Michael immediately recognized one of them as his father, younger and with fewer gray hairs. The other man sent chills down his spine. It was unmistakably Ashley's father, a man Michael knew only through pictures, as he was supposedly dead long before Michael met Ashley. "This can't be," Michael murmured, peering more closely. The setting appeared to be some sort of business event, with banners and partially visible logos in the background. Flipping the picture, he hoped to find a date or a note. On the back, in his father's unmistakable handwriting, he read, "Me and Robert, sealing the deal. May our children never discover the price of this success." A maelstrom of questions flooded Michael's mind. His father and Ashley's father knew each other. What deal was this? What price was his father referring to? And why was it so crucial that their children never find out? In the days that followed, Michael watched Ashley with new eyes. Every gesture, every word now seemed laden with hidden meaning. He noticed how she seemed more tense, more distracted. Sometimes he caught her staring off into space, her face etched with worry and inner conflict. One afternoon, while pretending to work on his laptop, Michael saw Ashley take a call that visibly shook her. She quickly left for the garden, her urgent whispers inaudible to him. That night, Michael had another secret meeting with Sam. The investigator looked more agitated than usual, his eyes shining with the excitement of fresh breakthroughs. "Michael, you won't believe what I found," Sam said, spreading out another set of documents across the table. "I dug deeper into Rocha Enterprises' finances and found evidence of suspicious transactions dating back years. We're talking at least a decade before you married Ashley." Michael felt a knot form in his stomach. "What does that mean, Sam?" "It means whatever's going on started much earlier than we thought. And look here," Sam pointed to one document. "These transactions follow a pattern similar to the ones we uncovered recently. It's as if someone was rehearsing, testing the waters for something bigger." Michael told Sam about the photo he'd discovered, and the investigator nodded gravely. "This confirms my suspicions. There's a much deeper story here, Michael, one involving your family, Ashley's family, and probably the Blackwoods too." As they discussed these new revelations, Michael's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Michael, it's us, Lily and Lucy. We need to talk to you. It's urgent." Worry flooded him. The twins had never contacted him directly before. "Sam, I have to go. The twins want to meet." Sam frowned. "Be careful, Michael. We still don't know who else might be involved." Michael found the girls in the same alley where he'd first encountered them. They looked even more agitated than usual, their large eyes brimming with both fear and excitement. "Mr. Michael," Lily began, her voice trembling. "We saw something strange last night." Lucy continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "A man broke into your office really late. He looked like the man in the photo you showed us." Michael's heart pounded. "Which photo?" "That old one," Lily clarified. "The one you showed us of your dad with another man." Michael was stunned. He had never shown that photo to the twins. How could they possibly know about it? "Girls," he said carefully, "I never showed you that picture. How do you know about it?" The twins exchanged anxious glances. Finally, Lucy admitted, We sometimes sneak into your office at night to see if there's anything that could help you." Michael couldn't decide whether to be impressed by their initiative or worried for their safety. "That's very dangerous. You shouldn't do that." "But we want to help," Lily protested. "And we've seen things, Mr. Michael. Important things." Michael crouched down to their level. "What kind of things?" The twins then recounted a story that made Michael's blood run cold. They spoke of whispered conversations they'd overheard, documents they'd glimpsed, and a mysterious man who seemed to be at the center of it all. "And last night," Lily concluded, "we saw him. He looked older than in the photo, but it was him. And he was talking to your wife, Mr. Michael." They looked angry with each other. Michael felt the ground shift beneath him. Ashley's father, supposedly dead for years, alive and secretly meeting with her. What else was hidden in this web of lies? Thanking the twins and urging them once more to stay safe, Michael returned home with his mind in turmoil. He knew he was close to uncovering a truth that could change everything, but he still couldn't see the full picture. In the days that followed, Michael threw himself even deeper into his investigation. He spent hours digging through old files, connecting dots that previously seemed unconnected. Each new discovery raised more questions than answers. One night, while working late in his home office, Michael heard raised voices downstairs. Silently, he crept to the top of the stairs and listened by the living room door. "We can't keep doing this, Ashley." It was Nathan's tense voice, brimming with fear. "He's pushing too hard. If we keep going, everything's going to fall apart." "Calm down, Nathan." Ashley's tone was firm, but Michael detected uncertainty in it. "We have to trust the plan. He knows what he's doing." "Does he?" Nathan shot back. "Because it feels like we're risking more and more. And for what? Revenge? That won't bring anything back." There was a moment of silence, and then Ashley spoke again, her voice softer. "It's not just revenge, Nathan. It's about justice, about making right the wrongs of the past." "At what cost?" Nathan asked. "Our lives? Our freedom?" "Ashley, think about it. Michael doesn't deserve this. He's not like—" "Enough!" Ashley cut him off sharply. "We have no choice now. We're in too deep. He's pressuring us to finish the plan, and that's exactly what we're going to do." Michael backed away quietly, his heart pounding. The conversation confirmed his worst fears, but also raised new questions. Who was this he that Ashley and Nathan both feared? What past wrongs were they trying to right? That night, lying in bed beside Ashley, who pretended to sleep, Michael made up his mind. He couldn't go on living in this web of lies and half-truths. It was time to confront Ashley, to demand the truth, no matter how painful it might be. But before he could act, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from Sam. "Major discovery. Ashley's father is alive. Repeat, Robert Stevens is alive and has been spotted in the city. Be careful, Michael. Things are about to explode." Michael looked at Ashley, sleeping peacefully next to him. Tomorrow, he promised himself. Tomorrow, he would confront his wife and demand the truth. The puzzle was nearly complete, but the final pieces promised to be the most painful to place. Michael lay staring at the ceiling, his mind a torrent of emotion and unanswered questions. The pieces were coming together, but the picture they formed was darker and more complicated than he ever imagined. As the sun began to rise, he knew the day ahead would bring revelations that would change his life forever. As the first rays of dawn seeped through the curtains, Michael remained awake, his body exhausted but his mind refusing to rest. Next to him, Ashley stirred slightly in her sleep, unaware of the storm raging inside her husband. Michael looked at her, studying every detail of her face. How could someone he loved so deeply have hidden so many secrets? How had they reached this point? Gently, he got out of bed, careful not to wake her. He went to the window, gazing at the city slowly coming to life. Somewhere in those streets, Lily and Lucy were likely already awake, fighting for another day of survival. And somewhere else, Ashley's father, a man who should have been dead, was planning the next step in a long orchestrated plan. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the weight of all he had discovered and all that still lay ahead. He knew the coming hours would be crucial. The showdown with Ashley was inevitable, and with it would come a truth that could destroy everything he knew. Yet there was also a spark of hope. The twins, with their innocence and bravery, had proved invaluable allies, and Sam, with his relentless dedication, continued to unearth vital clues. Turning back toward the bed, Michael looked at Ashley once more. Despite everything, part of him still hoped there was some explanation, that somehow it could all be a terrible misunderstanding. Today, he whispered to himself, today it all comes out. With that resolve, Michael prepared to face the day that would irrevocably change his life. The final pieces of the puzzle were about to snap into place, revealing a picture that he knew could never be undone. Michael stood by the window, outlined against the sunrise, ready to face the new day and the uncertain future awaiting him. The puzzle was nearly solved, and the final picture promised to be as revealing as it was devastating. Michael's office was steeped in tense silence when Ashley walked in. She immediately noticed the grim expression on her husband's face and the stacks of documents spread across his desk. "Michael, what's going on?" Ashley asked, her voice quivering slightly. Michael lifted his eyes from the papers in front of him, his penetrating gaze locking onto Ashley's. "I think you know exactly what's going on, Ashley. It's time for the truth." He began laying out documents, photos, and transcripts of recordings across the desk. "I have evidence of embezzlement, suspicious conversations, secret meetings. And this," he paused, holding up the photo of his father with hers, "suggests there's a lot more to this story than you ever told me." Ashley visibly paled, her wide eyes fixed on the photograph. For a moment, it looked like she might deny everything, but then her shoulders sagged in defeat. I don't know where to start," she whispered, sinking into the chair opposite Michael's desk. "How about at the beginning?" Michael suggested, his voice firm but not devoid of compassion. Ashley took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment before speaking. "My family, we've been completely bankrupt for years, Michael. Everything you see, our house, our cars, our clothes, is all a facade." Michael nodded slowly, urging her to continue. "But it wasn't always like that," Ashley went on, her voice gaining strength. "There was a time the Stevens were as powerful as the Rocha family. Until—" she hesitated, looking directly at Michael. "Until your father ruined mine." Michael felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "What are you talking about?" "That photo," Ashley pointed to the image on the desk, "was taken on the day our fathers closed a big deal together. But your father, he used unethical tactics, Michael. He manipulated contracts, bribed officials, did whatever it took to ensure the Rochas came out on top, leaving the Stevens in ruins." Michael shook his head in disbelief. "No, my father would never do that." "He did," Ashley insisted, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "And that's what started all of this." She then described how her father, devastated by his losses, hatched an elaborate plan for revenge. He faked his own death to work from the shadows, manipulating Ashley and Nathan to infiltrate Michael's life and business. Our marriage started as part of that plan," Ashley admitted, her voice breaking. "I was supposed to get close to you, earn your trust, and then destroy me," Michael finished, his voice tinged with pain and anger. Ashley nodded, tears now streaming down her face. "But something happened, Michael. Something none of us anticipated. I fell in love with you." "Really?" She explained the complex financial scheme they used to siphon funds from Rocha Enterprises, detailing each person's role. Diana, Ashley's mother, handled the offshore accounts. Nathan, enticed by promises of wealth and power, executed the internal transfers. And Alexander Blackwood, son of a former Stevens ally, provided the legal and financial infrastructure. It was all orchestrated by my father, Ashley concluded. He's obsessed, Michael. Revenge has consumed his life, and he dragged us all down with him. Michael listened in a state of shock, his mind struggling to process the enormity of the revelations. His own father's part in the Stevens family tragedy rocked him to the core. "Why are you telling me all this now?" he finally asked. Ashley looked at him, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Because I can't take it anymore, Michael. The guilt, the lies, it's tearing me apart, and because, despite everything, I do love you. I know you probably don't believe me, but it's true." She stood, walking around the desk to face him. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. What we did, what I did, is unforgivable. But you deserve to know the truth." Michael sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of her confession pressing down on him. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady. "You're right, Ashley, I did deserve the truth. And now that I have it, I need time to process all this." Ashley nodded, understanding what remained unsaid. She slowly walked to the door, pausing for a moment before leaving. "I'm sorry, Michael, for everything." When the door closed behind her, Michael sank into his chair, feeling as if his entire world had flipped upside down. The truth had finally emerged, but instead of clarity, it felt like a bottomless pit of new moral dilemmas. As night fell, Michael remained in his office, grappling not only with Ashley's betrayal, but also with the tarnished legacy of his own father. The puzzle was complete, but the image it revealed was more complex and painful than he could ever have imagined. Hours passed, and Michael stayed motionless, Ashley's confession echoing in his mind. The moon was high in the sky when he finally rose, his legs stiff from lack of movement. He walked to the window, gazing at the city lights that never slept. Somewhere out there, Ashley's father, a man he never met who had nearly orchestrated his downfall, was likely plotting his next move. And in another corner of the city, two small twins, Lily and Lucy, were sleeping in some cold, dark alley, oblivious to the pivotal role they had played in all this. Michael thought about his own father, a man he'd always seen as a paragon of integrity and ethics in business. The revelation of his father's past deeds shook the very foundations on which Michael had built his life and career. With a heavy sigh, he looked at the photo that started it all. Two smiling men, unaware of the legacy of pain and betrayal their actions would unleash. "What do I do now?" Michael murmured, feeling the weight of responsibility bear down on him. He knew difficult decisions lay ahead, about his marriage, his company, and a future that now seemed uncertain. But one thing was clear: the truth, however painful, was the first step toward healing. As the first light of dawn filtered through the window, Michael made a silent vow. He would face the consequences of these revelations head-on. He would right the wrongs of the past, his own and his father's, and somehow find a path to redemption for himself, for Ashley, and for everyone caught in this intricate web of revenge and deceit. Michael stood, bathed in the morning sun, determined to face the day and the uncertain future that awaited him. The truth had come to light, and now it was up to him to write the next chapter in this turbulent story. The sun had barely risen when Michael Rocha, accompanied by a team of federal agents, arrived at the address Ashley had provided. It was a modest house in the city's outskirts, an unlikely location for the mastermind of such an elaborate revenge plot. Michael's heart pounded as the agents took their positions. This was it, the final confrontation with the man who had manipulated his life from the shadows for so long. "Mr. Stevens," the lead agent's voice boomed through a megaphone. "We know you're inside. Come out with your hands up." For a few tense moments, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the front door opened. Robert Stevens, Ashley's father, emerged with his hands raised. His eyes immediately locked onto Michael's, a mixture of defiance and resignation. "So the game's finally over," Stevens said calmly as the agents handcuffed him. Michael stepped forward, facing the man who had been the architect of so much chaos and pain. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why go this far?" Stevens let out a bitter laugh. "You wouldn't understand, boy. Your father took everything from me. My company, my reputation, my future. This was my life these last years. Planning, waiting, carrying out my vengeance. As Stevens was led away, Michael stood there, feeling oddly empty. The man's arrest should have been a relief, yet it left him with more questions than answers. In the days that followed, the full truth came out. Ashley and Nathan, keeping their promise, cooperated fully with the authorities. They provided documents, emails, and recordings, everything needed to dismantle the scheme. Diana Stevens, Ashley's mother, was arrested while trying to flee the country. Alexander Blackwood was caught in his office, in the midst of a desperate attempt to destroy evidence. One by one, all those involved in the conspiracy were brought to justice. Michael watched all this unfold with a mixture of relief and profound sadness. Each new revelation, each arrest, was a reminder of how much his life had been built on lies and manipulations. A week after Robert Stevens's arrest, Michael found himself sitting in his office with Ashley. The air between them was heavy with unspoken words and unexpressed feelings. I don't know what to say, Michael. Ashley finally broke the silence, her voice trembling. I know an apology isn't enough, but I truly am sorry for everything. Michael studied her for a long moment. Despite it all, part of him still loved the woman sitting before him. But that love was now tainted by betrayal and deception. I believe you, Ashley, he said softly. I believe you're sorry, and I appreciate that you finally told me the truth. But it's not enough, Ashley finished, silent tears running down her cheeks. Michael nodded slowly. I can't stay in this marriage. The trust was broken in a way I don't know can ever be repaired. Ashley closed her eyes, accepting Michael's words with painful resignation. I understand. And I respect your decision. In the months that followed, Michael poured himself into restructuring not just his company, but his entire life. He hired a team of independent auditors to review every aspect of Rocha Enterprises, determined to address any injustices, past or present. During this process, Michael discovered the full extent of his father's unethical actions. Families who had lost everything, smaller companies crushed, lives irreparably altered by greed and unbridled ambition. With renewed resolve, Michael set up a compensation fund. He personally met with each affected family, listening to their stories, offering not just financial restitution, but opportunities for a fresh start. I can't undo what my father did, he told one such family, but I can try to correct the wrongs of the past and build a better future. As he worked to make amends, Michael reevaluated his own values and priorities. The corporate world, once the center of his existence, now seemed hollow and meaningless. During this period of introspection, his thoughts often returned to Lily and Lucy, the little girls who had saved his life and inadvertently exposed the entire conspiracy. Where were they now? Were they safe? Determined to find them, Michael hired private investigators and worked with social services. Weeks passed with no success, until finally, on a rainy afternoon, he received the call he'd been waiting for. The twins had been located in a temporary shelter for homeless children. Michael rushed there, his heart pounding. When he finally saw them, a wave of emotion swept over him. Lily and Lucy looked even smaller and more fragile than he remembered, their large eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. Mr. Michael, Lily asked hesitantly, recognizing him. Michael knelt to their level. Hi, Lily, Lucy. I've been looking all over for you. The girls exchanged nervous glances. Are we in trouble? Lucy asked in a near whisper. No, Michael assured them quickly. In fact, I came to thank you. You saved my life, remember? And you helped me uncover the truth about many important things. The twins relaxed a bit, though they still seemed unsure. Michael took a deep breath before continuing. Actually, I came to make you an offer. If you'd like, I'd like to give you a permanent home. With me? The girl's eyes widened in surprise. A home? Lily stammered. Yes, Michael nodded with a gentle smile. A real home, with warm meals, clean clothes, and a comfortable bed. What do you think? There was a moment of silence as they processed his offer. Then, slowly, smiles began to form on their faces. Will we stay together? Lucy asked timidly. Of course, Michael promised. You'll never be separated again. Tears in their eyes, Lily and Lucy nodded, accepting Michael's offer. In that moment, as he embraced these two girls who had changed his life in such profound ways, Michael felt a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. The following months were a whirlwind of changes. Michael went through the adoption process, transforming his once cold and impersonal mansion into a warm home for two lively girls. Lily and Lucy, initially shy and guarded, blossomed under Michael's care and love. One afternoon, about a year after the adoption, Michael sat in the garden with the girls. They had just finished planting a small vegetable patch, their hands covered in dirt, their faces beaming with happiness. "Girls," Michael began softly, "do you know why it's important to be honest and do the right thing even when it's hard?" Lily and Lucy glanced at each other thoughtfully before Lily answered, Because it's the right thing to do." Michael smiled, proud. "Exactly. And you see, in business and in life, it can be tempting to take shortcuts or do wrong to get ahead. But in the end, integrity is what truly matters." The girls listened carefully, absorbing every word. "I promise you," Michael continued, "I'll always try to do the right thing, to be an example of integrity. And I hope you'll carry those values with you wherever you go." Lucy, the quieter of the two, surprised Michael by speaking up. "Like when we decided to warn you about the car, even though we were scared." Michael felt tears welling up. "Exactly, my love. You were incredibly brave and showed true integrity that day. And look how that decision changed our lives." As the sun set on the horizon, Michael hugged Lily and Lucy, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Through all the lies, betrayals, and pain, he had found a precious truth: the unconditional love of two little girls who had risked everything to do what was right. Michael, Lily, and Lucy, united not by blood but by choice and love, looked toward the future with hope and determination. A new chapter in their lives was opening, one built on honesty, integrity, and the redemptive power of genuine love. And so, as the stars began to dot the night sky, Michael made a silent pledge. The legacy he left for Lily and Lucy, and for the world, would be one of unwavering integrity and boundless compassion. The redemption he sought was not only in correcting past mistakes, but in shaping a future where truth and love triumphed over greed and deceit. With Lily and Lucy by his side, Michael knew he could face whatever challenges the future held. Together, they would write a new story, a story of hope, redemption, and the ultimate victory of truth over lies. As night fell, Michael, Lily, and Lucy headed back inside. The girls, tired yet happy from a day of gardening and important conversations, got ready for bed. Michael tucked them in, giving each a goodnight kiss on the forehead. After gently closing their bedroom door, Michael walked downstairs to his office. There, he picked up a framed photo of his father and studied it for a long moment. "I hope you're proud, Dad," he murmured. "I'm trying to fix our mistakes and create a better legacy." Replacing the photo, Michael went to the window. The city lights sparkled in the distance, full of promise and possibility. He thought of all the lives affected by this journey: Ashley, Nathan, the Blackwoods, the families he was helping to compensate. Each was part of this complex story of redemption. With a deep sigh, he turned back to his desk. On it lay a new contract, an agreement to convert part of his company into a foundation dedicated to helping children living on the streets. It was his way of honoring Lily and Lucy and every child like them who needed a chance. As he signed the document, Michael felt a calming sense of peace. The path ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time in a long while, he felt genuinely hopeful about the future. "A new beginning," he said quietly, a faint smile forming on his lips. And with those words, the final chapter comes to a close, leaving Michael Rocha not just as a redeemed man, but as someone determined to spread that redemption to the world around him, one act of kindness at a time.